This is great. Facebook Live. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to Intersection, where we bring together the issues of faith, media, and culture. My name's Chap Clark, and amazingly enough, I'm actually a pastor at an amazing church called St. Andrew's Press in Newport Beach, and I'm with my good friend Ralph Winter, who is a producer. He is an elder, believe it or not, in so many different ways. You are an elder.
Stop.
Deeply insightful. He has an honorary doctorate, and he actually has changed so many lives in so many different ways in so many industries, but he's a legit guy in the film industry. And Ralph and I love to get together and talk about what does it mean to pull together our faith in light of media and culture and what's going on out there in the culture. In the last 2 years, Ralph, as you know, it's been, as everybody knows, if they'd admit it, it's been just a kind of a crazy last couple of years. Tumultuous time in culture, whether it's immigration, the Me Too movement, violence. Where are Christians in the middle of all the things that go on in culture? How do we engage the world? And so, Ralph, we're getting together to talk about that today. This is a podcast called Intersection. So thanks for being here.
Cool. Thank you.
And something coming up this weekend.
Big Sunday night.
Yeah,
You know.
John Perkins is coming to preach at St. Andrews. Is that what you're talking about?
I wasn't, but I think
spring
that's
training,
great.
a little baseball starting up. What else is going on Sunday?
Yeah, well, the Oscars, the Academy Awards will be presented.
Well,
on
maybe
Sunday
a couple
night.
million people will watch those this year. They're
We
anticipating.
need more than that to pay for the bills.
That would be great. So the Oscars are coming up. So tell us what's going on with the Oscars. How do you anticipate this year being compared to years past?
I think it'll be good. I think there's a good crop of movies, and as a producer, I'm interested in the Oscars because that's sort of the highest award for people who produce movies. And the last award that is given out is awarded to the best picture.
Well, except for 2 years ago when it actually wasn't. Do you remember that little?
Well, it got confusing.
They got a little
Got a
nutty.
little confusing. La La Land or Moonlight.
And so people like me love to, not only because I know you and been around you a lot, but the idea of the Oscars reflects for me that there's a lot going on in culture that somehow people are being drawn to these films. And asking the question, why are we being drawn to these films? Why the Academy Awards? Why should a Christian, and I hope everybody at St. Andrews and everywhere else would come and look at the Academy Awards and have parties and talk to other people about them. But why do we celebrate the Academy Awards at the level we do?
Well, look, I think the Academy looks every year to honor and promote and raise up the best of the skill set, the best of the storytelling that hopefully will last a long time. And that's the effort at the Oscars, is to, like for Best Picture in particular, is to honor something that's going to last. It's going to last the test of time. And so it's not the People's Choice Awards. You know, you can watch, or the MTV Awards, if you think that's, you know, your favorite movie's not nominated for an Oscar. That's okay. There's lots of award shows. But the Oscars, the Academy Awards, are about excellence, at least from people that are working in the business and their profession is telling stories. So
Now, why would a Christian, that's wonderful and yay, and that they're celebrating and can stand back and applaud excellence, but there's got to be more going on, or millions and millions of people wouldn't watch it. Why should Christians engage in the Academy Awards?
Well, I think really for that, it's in terms of the kinds of stories and skill sets that are being promoted and being honored, is the best of the best of what we see in the culture in terms of, again, storytelling. So, you know, when you get at what stories are about and how we go about telling stories, we think about that a lot in the church. And I think there's stuff we can take from how Oscars honor those stories and how those stories are told, and you know, there's room to interact with that.
And for years, you've been doing a Sunday school class at your church, and then we had Dr. Cutter Calloway from Fuller, who's one of your proteges and good friends. I don't know if he'd like actually saying that. Well, yeah, he would say that. And he did that here at St. Andrews, and you were doing it in Montrose. Tell us what you did with that Sunday school class. What's the kind of thing you do with these Academy Award films?
So what I'm doing in the class is basically taking, this year there's 8 nominated pictures, and your job to come to my Sunday school class is to watch the movie, bring your Bible, and then we'll talk about what's the movie about? Do you understand what the movie's about? And then how does that match up with what we believe as people of faith? And it's an 8-week class. The last week will be this coming Sunday. The movie this Sunday is A Star is Born. You'll watch that movie. We'll have a discussion. We'll see how that lines up or doesn't line up. And then I'm going to pass out my ballot as an Academy member, and you get to vote and see if you're as smart as a third grader to see what happens in the evening and what actually wins the award and all of that.
All right, before we're done, we're actually going to make our predictions. How about that? How often have you been accurate? I mean, percentage-wise, roughly. Half?
Maybe. I don't know. Something like that.
I think a little bit more than that. I think you...
One of the things that I try to do in the class is break down the structure of a movie.
Okay, do that for us. Tell us what you do.
So how the movie is told, how it plays out. And in that structure, I think there's a couple of key moments. And when those moments are there, it creates box office, it creates enjoyment, it creates a connection with the material that usually wins the Oscar. So that's part of the process we go through, is it's a little bit of a forensics, detective process, as well as hopefully a learning process. So a movie that has made, $1 billion this year is Black Panther, which, by the way, I'm a fan of movies that go to theaters. I don't think Black Panther would have been the cultural event in our society if it had come out on Netflix. Just saying.
Okay.
So there's usually 5 or 6 steps that take place in a movie that are what we're used to in Western kind of storytelling. So there's usually a main character with a need or a lack at the beginning of the movie that then forms quickly into a desire line, and it also matches up with an opponent, so that there's someone who's standing directly in the path of what our main character wants. And then there's a series of plans and battles that happen throughout the movie that keep our interest. And usually there's one battle. There's the culmination of that the hero might die or face death or face ultimate questions and learn something. There's something that the main character learns about themselves, him or her. And then at the end, resolves that and goes on to, more adventures, more journeys. Or if you're a studio movie, you can make sequels.
Sequels, right.
Make sequels.
It seems like what you're saying is what draws so many people to movies is not only to enjoy a story, but to see, and not only to see someone who goes through that process for a new revelation, but that we get to see ourselves somehow in that story, and we're drawn into that story in a way that we feel aligned with that hero as they go through that journey. And as Christians, so many Christians seem to avoid movies and to actually pretend like that there is not this conversation going on in the rest of culture. But it would seem like we would be the ones that would want to know, what does it mean for our personal stories to connect with the rest of culture, so we can take the story God has given us and hand it off to other people. So there's a lot of this self-revelation stuff that I think we could engage in.
So let's break down some of that, because that's
let's
a
go
lot
through
of things.
that. Yeah.
I think people go to movies for the feelings. They go for emotions. People go to movies for an emotional response. You go to see a big action movie. You go to see, a romantic movie or a comedy. You go for an emotional reason. That's usually what it's about. It's not necessarily, I've said this to other students, that my wife never says to me, let's go see that movie that came in on budget. Never says that, because no one cares. It doesn't matter. And so, they may go to see Avatar, but in an era of Avatar, a movie like The Artist, a black and white silent movie, wins the Oscar. Why? Because it's the story, because it's how it affects you and how it grabs you. And so it doesn't matter about budget. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if it's in focus all the time. What matters is whether or not it's a compelling story. So that's the first thing that sort of, I think, drives our business. Everyone's looking for that. What's compelling? If you saw A Star is Born, I mean, that's a compelling movie. You can't take your eyes away. It's an intriguing, journey for those two characters.
Well, for me, out of the 8 films, I would say Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody are the 2 that actually grab me the most.
Yeah.
But that may say more about me than it does about the Academy Award films.
But that's all right. I mean, those are honored, and those are good stories. I think that, understanding what these movies are about is a way for Christians to interact with the culture if we want to be relevant, if we want to interact and be a part of that dialogue that's going on in the culture. And I think when you drill down on that, you find that filmmakers, whether they have a faith background or not, are asking the same questions that we're asking. They're interested in why we're here. What are the ultimate things about life? What is valuable? What lasts? What is my role here? And so, I mean, that's kind of the stuff I dig down into in the class in watching these movies, is to try to understand that so that we can see what that common connection is with a wider culture. And then, I think if we're more understanding about that, there's a chance to, make a connection.
Well, and for example, if you see this before the Academy Awards here on Sunday, this is now Thursday, is if you watch it, you will have the opportunity maybe to be able to engage other people who you normally don't know what to talk about. You can talk about what you saw in the Academy Awards and what touched you and what were you rooting for, and so that you can actually have a conversation with somebody and come alongside them, which is the first step of actually being representatives of Christ in the world. So let's go a little deeper into these
So
films.
a movie like Roma.
Yeah,
which
I still don't get. I know you and Cutter both tell me I'm an idiot, but
Roma is a fantastic movie. I've seen 4 or 5 times now, and it's a story about the other people that are around us but overlooked. And this is a domestic that was raising this director, and he made this as sort of a love story back about remembering her and the role that she played. And when you watch this movie as she's a domestic with this, wealthy family in Mexico in the 70s, and how she's part of the family, but she's also overlooked. She watches TV with the family, but they don't let her sit on the couch. She sits on the floor. And then it culminates in a scene where, she's trying to find love. She's normal. She wants a boyfriend, but the boyfriend, she gets pregnant, and she's more worried about her job, and they take care of her. And all of these things weave together. You see what this life is like for this woman, and how she's, underappreciated, but has, all these high expectations.
all right, I get it now. Thank you.
No, stop. and she goes through, a violent and tumultuous birth of this child that turns out to be stillborn. And the self-revelation that she has as she rescues the kids of this wealthy family, almost sacrificing
This is, by the way,
life.
a spoiler alert for those of you that have not seen Roma
No, there's
yet.
no spoilers. You hear her, reveal about herself what it's really about, that she never really wanted that baby to be born. And the layers and complexity, the familiarity with real life, as well as the depth that he portrays in that, is astonishing and moving, and has affected a lot of people to resonate with that story. There are no spoilers.
Oh, okay, we can lay it all
Because
out
you
there.
didn't go to see Titanic because you thought the ship was going to float.
But
You didn't know.
you sure? I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that Titanic. Okay, got it. Okay.
Because it's not about that. It's about the way the story's told. You see Romeo and Juliet often. You watch Titanic. You watch war movies. You know what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. It's how the story's told. That's what affects you.
Great.
That's what gets inside. Anyway, so Black Panther, sort of hits all those notes, and was also a cultural event, in our society, in our country, and around the world. People dressed up to go see it. I don't think anybody dresses up to go see Netflix.
I do. We call it jammies.
Okay, well, that's you. But that worked at multiple levels. Not only a good story that kind of breaks that mold of Marvel a little bit, it also had great performances, and it also portrayed, an African culture in a way that has never been portrayed before.
Yeah, it had more cultural and societal statements in depth than any of those other films.
And had the satisfying stuff of a hero on that journey, doing the sort of normal thing. So, I think that has a very good chance of winning Best Picture as well as some other things. I think it's nominated for 7 or 8 Academy Awards.
That's great. Do you want to break them down now? Should we take a look at some of these?
Sure.
Other
Well,
films?
Roma, I just talked about, is nominated for 10 Academy Awards. The Favorite is the other one that's nominated for 10 Academy Awards. Did you see The Favorite?
That's the one I did not see.
So it's about 17th or 18th century England, and it's a power, intrigue, politics, with Queen Anne, and very big in the UK. Very sharp, snappy writing, and it's really a comedy when you see it. It's funny, in the class we did this last week, and half the class came in and said, "Oh man, I did not get that movie. There's 2 hours. I need those 2 hours back. You got to help me understand why I wasted 2 hours of my life."
Man.
So we went through and broke down that structure. Who's the hero? Who's the main character? And what's their journey throughout? And when we broke that down and you see it, it plays differently. And there's some stuff in there that, for more staid Brits is hilarious. It's just ridiculous. And only when you begin to understand the story do you see the humor of it and see the multiple levels that monarch goes through. And it's a really good movie. The woman who plays Queen Anne is also playing Queen Elizabeth in the next 2 seasons of The Crown. So she's very accomplished, and that's just a preview of the kind of performances she'll be giving on that Netflix series.
Do you think that has a chance? Favorite?
No, I don't, frankly.
Too British?
Not widely known or widely seen enough here. I think Vice, probably the same, very political, good story about Dick Cheney, but I don't think...
But pretty harsh on him, obviously, right?
Yeah. One thing I want to say about these movies is that some people will say, well, not everything in Green Book was true, or not everything in Black Klansman was true.
Okay, this is good.
If you want a true story, then you'll watch a documentary, or you'll read the news. These aren't meant to be a documentary. It's not meant to line up the facts in a way that you agree with. This is an artist. So an artist doesn't take, every painting an artist does isn't an exact replication like a photograph of what someone looks like. There's an interpretation. And the artists are doing the same thing in these. So Black Klansman's based on a guy who, a African-American who infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan. That's true. That's based on fact. But the violence and romance are added to make the story interesting. It's up to you to decide, whether or not that's detracting from the core element of what the story's
let's
about.
talk about that film for a second, because obviously a Spike Lee movie has a lot of undertones. It's billed as a comedy, but when you go there,
It's hilarious.
there's a lot of comedy, yes, but there's an awful lot of social kind of reminders of how far we have to go to be even kind and civil. And he brings in Charlottesville and the riots in Charlottesville. So how does a person who is not part of the world that would relate to a film like Black Klansman, if a person that has really stayed away from those issues of racism in America today, which Spike Lee was clearly wanting to compare what took place in Colorado Springs 30, 40 years ago to what happened in Charlottesville last year. What was he doing there?
So, if you're immune to racial issues in America, you're asleep. But secondly, I think
a lot of Christians, I would say, probably have
asleep.
worked very hard to stay as far away from that as possible.
Yeah. And what the artist is trying to do is trying to relate that it's not so far away. It's not so distant that it can happen today. It is happening today. And it's relevant, and you're not paying attention. Flannery O'Connor says that for the blind, you draw large and distorted images. and for the deaf you shout. Spike Lee is drawing large and distorted images so that you will pay attention. He's trying to push your button. He's trying to irritate you. He wants you to be irritated because when you're irritated, you're going to pay attention to what's being said. That's the point. That's why he's doing it. And if you think he's crazy, if it's wrong, then you don't see the news with the governor of Virginia, or you don't see the piece in USA Today this week where an Alabama newspaper guy is calling for the Klan to ride again in D.C. It's not so far-fetched. Which is more distorted? What you read in the newspaper or what he's done in the movie?
So why would that film be so billed as a comedy when it's so much more than a comedy? Is that to get audiences to come? Is that kind of the idea?
I thought it was funny. I mean,
well, there's a lot of funny. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that.
But I think that's an entry point. I mean,
it's a really interesting movie that you walk out of there going, yeah, I enjoyed it, sort of, but it.
Would you enjoy it more if I called it a drama?
No.
No, you probably wouldn't, and you might not come because
I wouldn't come, and I'd probably be mad.
So we made a movie called The Promise about the Armenian genocide. And, you know, we didn't promote it as a genocide movie. You're not going to come see that. You don't want to be preached to about the genocide. So we made it a love story, and Christian Bale. Oh, he's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
What's he? Oh, and it happens to take place at the Armenian. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's more the art of storytelling. Great. That I'm going to put things out there to get your attention, and then
And that's why that film is on this list, most likely, right? Because of the fullness of all that.
Yeah. Well, it's also very good storytelling.
Yeah.
There's multiple layers. What do you mean a black guy got inside, infiltrated the... What? How's that possible? That's ludicrous. And then that's what the movie's about, is to lay that out.
What are some other? Stars Born. You even mentioned the remake.
The third remake.
Third remake, but the second one was the most famous for most people anyway, with Christopherson and...
That's the third one. Yeah, this is the fourth. This is the third remake. One. Yeah, there's four.
Wow.
One in 54 with Judy Garland, and there was one in the 30s as well. It was more of a drama. I think this may have peaked too soon for Oscar viewers. It got a lot of attention in October when it came out, and Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper are already sort of stars. So it might not get as much love, but again, it could be the come from behind picture to win.
I walked away from that. I saw it with Dee, and like probably a lot of guys, my wife wanted to see that film, and I went, yeah, okay. I mean, sure. And,
Bradley Cooper's Blue Eyes.
He probably, and the love story piece of it. And Lady Gaga was fantastic, and yet I was left so depressed after that movie, and actually so saddened by how substances and the lack of honesty and community around us to help us to deal with ourselves. I mean, it just was such a heavy, heavy film, as it was a beautiful love story. So it just seemed to have a lot of pieces to it that didn't necessarily make me champion it. Oh, that's a great movie, you got to see it. And I don't wonder if other people felt that way.
There's a lot of people that like the movie. I think that, again, looking at Oscars and looking what's going to be Best Picture, it's what's the kind of picture that's going to, stand the test of time. Can you watch that movie again? Or is it a movie you've seen once and it's like, I don't want to see it again? I think that movie will stand the test of time because what makes you uncomfortable is those things are so close.
Well,
what makes
addiction, suicide, I mean, all kinds of things. But the dialogue,
the way they talk to each other is too close. It's the way spouses talk to each other.
And which is where faith conversations can fit right in the middle of that. So many people are dealing with those kind of things.
Yeah.
And yet being so close to home, it's like, oh, gosh.
Not every movie, is meant to comfort the afflicted. Some are meant to afflict the comforted. And so that probably fits in there.
I thought our job was to comfort the comfortable.
Maybe.
Maybe I messed
at
up.
Times. Maybe.
Okay.
We have to hurry along. We're going to watch the clock.
Yeah.
I thought Green Book was a relevant movie that sort of portrayed that part of history. I think the danger that the writers recognize and the filmmakers as well, is that you can't walk away from that film saying, oh man, I'm sure glad they solved racism back in the 60s, because that's all set now. And some people walk away, with a smug sort of feeling about that movie, but that's not what that was intended to do either. But it's good characterizations, it's good conflict, it's good storytelling, and it's won some awards already, so it could very well win Best Picture. It's possible.
It was a really interesting, feel-good movie at the end, and you really were rooting for both of those. There was actually two heroes in that.
And
both of them went through self-revelation in that film.
Yeah, they did. So, I mean, that's kind of the 8 movies: Roma, Green Book, Bohemian Rhapsody, Black Panther. Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody, we didn't talk
Not much
about
about
that.
that.
I mean, there's, gender, class, economic, all sorts of struggles that Freddie Mercury goes through to, achieve, what he wanted. And then when he gets there, realizes it's not exactly what it was all cracked up to be.
Well, and family relationships, and also your identity within your own family system. That was a piece of the thing, and yet they did a great job of having you feel for him and have compassion on him. I never really liked Queen. I wasn't into that kind of in the 70s and 80s that much. A few of the songs, but when I watched that, I was so drawn into the creativity and the brilliance of those 4 guys that it really awakened in me the brilliance of what some people that were seen as fringe, even they describe themselves as 4 people that nobody gets or on the outside, and all our fans are outsiders as well. That's one of the really touching points of that film.
That theme, touches a number of pictures this year in terms of otherness and being outsiders. Certainly from Roma, and even Eric, the Killmonger in Black Panther, is considered an outsider and not, on the inside.
And to have compassion on the outsider, it seems to be a relatively universal theme this year. In light of the culture we live in, the outsider is so often demonized, and we're having so many different dialogues related to how do we understand the outsider. Yet as Christians, we must care about the outsider, whether it's the woman at the well, whether it's the hemorrhaging woman, whether it's all the different places where Jesus connects with others. When we engage in films like this and the Academy Awards and have conversations, then we can maybe slow down some of our distancing ourselves from the world and actually come alongside people.
It's a place to connect.
Yeah,
and to talk about it.
A lot of these films stir our hearts if we let them.
Yeah, that creating that empathy is something the best filmmakers do very well, is to make you feel something, and that's kind of the point.
So, okay, Ralph, prediction time. What do you think? Let's start with Best Actor. Who do you think? Both male and female.
I think Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody is probably Best Actor. I mean, that's
unbelievable acting.
Performance, even with all those
the
prosthetics.
Teeth. I mean,
yeah.
If you don't know what we mean, you gotta at least look at a picture of that film. So.
Yeah, I think he's terrific. So Best Actress, I don't know. I'm just trying to run down the categories. Olivia Colman, who did The Favorite, was really good. I mean, it's an outstanding performance. Glenn Close is up for The Wife.
Right. I didn't see that, but
I don't know, maybe Olivia Colman. I mean, it was really a nuanced performance. Best Director is probably Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. And Best Picture, could be Star is Born, could be Black Panther. What's funny this year is a lot of pictures of one different thing. So I think Green Book was the picture for the Producers Guild, and they've been a pretty consistent predictor. Roma won the Directors Award. The writers were someone else. I mean, so it's kind of an open field. There's no clear leader in terms of the politics. Academy voters usually look at the nominations as the award. If you were nominated, you're nominated by your peers. So what makes it extraordinary for Roma or Favorite to get 10 nominations is the directors of the Guild only vote on Best Director. They don't vote on makeup. They don't vote on costume. They don't vote in anything, just
Oh,
their
so
area.
your peers in your
so
area,
if
right.
the nomination is by your peers. The second round of voting that just concluded is everyone votes for everything. So now, as a director, you can vote for picture, you can vote for makeup, you can vote for visual effects, et cetera. But the first round is that's really the award. The rest of
that's
it
great.
becomes a bit more marketing and a bit more of a popularity race.
Okay.
So
You didn't say which one you think is going to
I
win.
can't. I'm an Academy member. I can't do that.
Yeah.
You heard it in the
You
list.
are such-
You heard it. I can't do that. This is
I'm
going
not
to be.
gonna
It's
use
on
words.
Facebook Live. I can't do that.
That's true. Okay. Well, I can because I'm a nobody, and I actually think Roma, because of the current climate, is going
Might.
to win.
Yeah. It's one of the favored leaders. It's entirely possible.
And
It's a
hopefully
very
that'll
good
get
movie.
people to see it, and it's absolutely worth seeing. And now that you've helped us to understand some of the themes, I've seen it twice. I probably need to see it 4 times when I look at the planes going overhead and the
Notice that in the filmmaking, it's fantastic. That opening shot is 5 minutes without a cut.
of the
5.
water. You're not sure where the water's coming from. So
And what
if
kind
you
of
do
water? It's
rent
like-
it, watch more than the first 2 minutes because you're going, what's the deal with the water? And then you'll
The water comes in and out like the ocean. It's dirty. It's clean.
Not
the
sure.
window opens up. The plane comes over. All in one shot. The shot where she rescues the kids. That's a 5-minute shot as well. One shot.
Really?
One take. There's no cuts. It happens all in one.
Wow,
That's astonishing.
great.
So
And okay, lastly, we got to ask you. Now that Kevin Hart's not there, and there's no host. Is this the first time in history with no host?
no, it's been a number of times that there's been no
Okay.
host. That's fine. I think what Jimmy Kimmel's monologue was 18 minutes last time, so you've got another 18 minutes to play
Oh,
with.
finally, it'll go under 4 hours then tonight. Huh?
It's a lot of awards to put out, and it takes time. And you try to make it interesting so it's not award, commercial, award, commercial, award. They're trying to make it interesting so that you get a flavor of each of the movies, the best songs that are presented. I'm not sure any dance numbers that'll be there, but whatever,
Okay.
They're trying to make it interesting.
Well,
trying to make
thank you for taking this. This is so great. And when we're together talking about it, this time is so centric on the Academy Awards and on film. But the conversations we have are broader than that. They'll encompass music and television and what's going on in media and in culture. And what does it mean as Christians to ask the questions related to the world we live in? And so it's very fun to do this publicly and to do this with you.
It's cool. Thank
So
you.
thank you for taking the time. And did we get any questions as we wrap this up? I don't know if we actually did get any questions. I guess we didn't. So we're just going to say thank you. My name's Chap Clark. I'm here at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. This is Dr. Ralph Winter, producer, deeply engaged leader of our culture, and a man of faith who helps people to integrate their lives. That's why we call this Intersection. So thanks for being
Thank
here
you.
today, Ralph.
Very cool.
Fun to be together.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Okay.